Jai Hind to all. Myself Shikha Agarwal, Assistant Professor in Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College. So today we are going to discuss one more topic for the first year students, that is Introduction to Operating System and Typecasting. Before we start with the concept of introduction, we should know what do you mean by the term operating system. Operating system is basically a program that acts as a interface between the user and the computer hardware. Basically, it is an interface that helps for the individual user, like human beings, and the computer hardware, all the peripheral devices in which we are executing the codes. And it has having the control for the execution of all kinds of programs. Basically, the operating system also provides for an user a particular environment in which the user can interact or execute the programs conveniently and efficiently. Basically, we can say it is a software that helps to manages hardware. It is being providing a particular atmosphere or an environment through which the user can interact easily and make their work comfortable. When I am talking about an operating system also controls the execution of resources as well as all the services. We are not talking about only the environment, but also it controls the allocation of all the resources and the services, such as like how we are using the memory space, how the processor will work when more than one task is being assigned, how the devices being communicated with each other, and how the information is being flow from one node to the another. Fine. So this is all about introduction to operating system. When I'm talking about the concept of operating system, we should also be aware what is the purpose of using an operating system. Basically, operating system, as I have already told you, it is an interface, or you can say it is a environment, or it is providing an environment in which the user can interact or user can execute their particular programs, in which the user is very comfortable when they are comfortably using the computer systems. So basically, we can say it is being making the computer system convenient to use. Moreover, it also allow the multiple users to use the computer hardware in a very efficient manner, so that they can execute the hardware devices, they can operate the hardware devices as their need. When I am talking about the operating system, there are the two types of goals when I am talking about the operating system, when I am talking about the interface. The first primary goal is that it is being provided a convenient user interface or an environment to the particular user, so that the user can easily and efficiently use the resources. And similarly, when I am talking about its secondary goal says that operating system is being providing an efficient use of all the resources of the computer system. So we are working in the two things. The first is it provides an environment to the user, and secondly, how the user can easily, efficiently use the available resources. When I am talking about the computer system or the operating system, so into that case, there are certain functions, how the operating system is being working. So there are the certain functions of operating system, like the first is process management. As we all are aware that the system is having an n number of processes being executed. So we can say a process is what? A process is particular a program which is being executed under. So we can say when I'm talking about processing or a process management, we can say the process management module of an operating system taking care of creation of the modules or the processes or the deletion of the processes, scheduling of the various system resources, which is all the resources is being available to the different processes as they request them, and similarly they will provide the mechanism how they will synchronize and communicate with each other when it is being shared among n number of processes. So suppose if the system is executing an n processes in a particular amount of time, all those resources is being shared among them, and they need to communicate and synchronize how they will flow the data from one process to the another. The second function is file management. When I am talking about the file management module says the operating system will take care of the certain files related activities, like how to organize the file, how to store the data, how we can retrieve the file, how we have to naming, how to do the sharing and protection and so on. So there are the various activities which can be relevant for the management of the files. The next we are having a memory management. When I am talking about the memory management, as we all are aware that there are the two types of memory, primary memory and secondary memory. So how the operating system executes, what data we need to fetch from the secondary memory or from the primary memory. So basically with the help of the operating system, we can easily keep the tracks of the primary memory storage. That is what are all the parts in which who is by whom and which part is not in the use. When I'm talking about the multi-programming concept in the operating system, the operating system decides which process will get a memory and when and how much memory is being provided for a particular programs. Then we are talking about the memory management. We have to allocate the memory and when the process is being requested to do so. And similarly, when the process is no longer requires in the memory space or when it is being terminated, we have to deallocate the memory space also. This is the way how the operating system memory management function works. When I am talking about the security, as we know, when I am talking about the term security, it means we have to prevent the access of programs from an unauthorized members, right? Somebody can hack our password, or there are the various ways how we can manage the security. So in the case of operating system also, it prevents an unauthorized access of our programs and data by means of storing the passwords and or in other ways. We can easily manage the security also. The next, when I'm talking about the functions, the next is input and output management. Input and output means there are certain devices, because as we have already discussed that operating system also manage the efficient use of resources, how they will synchronize and how it is being used. So when I'm talking about the input output management, user should also understand or should also access all the devices in a uniform manner. Whatever the process is being required, so according to that, that input and output devices will function accordingly. All the devices should be named in a uniform manner. And similarly, the operating system should also optimize the performance of the input output systems, how they will perform and in how much duration according to the given process. The next, we are having a disk management. When I'm talking about the disk management, basically it is used to manage the drivers, all the drivers and tools which is being installed on the computer system, like your hard disk, your internal and external storage spaces, your optical disk or flash disk and so on. And similarly, when I'm talking about the disk management, as we always used to do whenever we are purchasing the laptops or systems, new systems, generally we used to do the partitioning of the drives. Why? Because in the one drive we can easily manage the softwares, then in the other drive we can manage our own data, which can be provide and prevented in the security form. So this is the way how we are managing the disk. It can be used to partition the drives, format the drives, assign the drive letters and so on. This is the way, as you guys can see in your laptops, like sometimes when we used to store the softwares, we are generally used to give the name as C drive and so on. So this is the way how we are assigning the letters. So this is all about the introduction for the functions, how the operating system works. When I'm talking about the operating system functions, similarly we are having a different types of operating systems. The first is a single user operating system. As it is clear from the word, I'm talking about an individual PC. So we can say when I'm using the word single user operating system, it allows only a one user to make the use of that particular PC in a particular given amount of time. The user operating systems are common like your personal computers. Like for example, you can use MS-DOS. The second, I'm talking about a multi-user operating systems. Multi-user operating system says in which we allow the multiple users, they can work simultaneously by using the resources on a single computer. Fine. So for example, I'm talking about Unix and Linux. The next, when we talk about batch operating system, suppose if I'm working as an individual, so it is a single user system. When multiple users can work simultaneously on a single system, then we can say it is a multi-user. And the next is your batch operating system. When I'm talking about the batch operating system, basically it is a system which is being used for processing similar types of jobs so that they can process simultaneously. So you can understand like this way, whenever we are having an n number of jobs into which we have to first prepare them and stored onto the card all the jobs of the similar types, then we have to collect all the jobs in a single area, and then we can store onto the card, and then that particular card is being submitted to the system for processing. This is the way how we are talking about the batches. Then after that, after the batches, we are having a multi-programming operating system. When I'm talking about the multi-programming operating system means when we are executing more than one programs. The system in which we are executing more than one or more programs, which is being loaded into the main memory, and they all are ready to execute. But when I'm talking about the CPU scheduling, because into that time only the one program is being able to get the CPU, right? Because CPU is one, so it will process the data of the one individual program. But somewhere it seems to be like that we are working for the multiple programs which is being loaded into main memory. So, but when we talk about the multi-programming system, only a one program at a time is able to get that particular CPU for executing its instructions, and the rest of the programs are in a waiting for their own turn. When I'm talking about the multi-programming, we can say we used to maximize the use of the CPU timing. Suppose the currently running process is performing an input-output task, right? Then the operating system may interrupt in between that process and give the control to the other, to the one of the other in the main memory programs that are already ready for the executor. So in this way, the CPU is not wasting its own system timing. So just for example, you can talk about Windows XP or Linux. The next, we are having a distributed operating system or real operating system. There is a little bit difference between the real-time operating system and distributed operating system. When I'm talking about the distributed operating system, the data is being stored and it is being processed on the multiple computers, those who are locating on a different locations. Fine. The operating system is being distributed as a software, which is being like they are all are a collection of an independent systems. Everybody is working on their own different locations and they are working on a independently. Just for example, WFS server, Unix United RPC servers, 24 Amoeba systems and so on. Like then we are talking about the real-time operating system. When I'm talking about the real-time operating system, this is particular operating system which is intended to be serving a real-time applications. Like we are working in a real way, like processing our data when it comes. So typically without delaying in a buffering system, it processes the requirements that is being measured in the terms of tenth of the seconds or like shorter than that. Like for example, we are working in a Windows CE environment. There are certain more terms. These all are the types of the operating system, but there are certain terms which is being interrelated to the operating system. So let's discuss those terms also. When I'm talking about the certain terms, there are like multiprocessing, multitasking and so on. So we will discuss one after another all the terms one by one. Like first term is multiprocessing. When I'm talking about the multiprocessing, it seems to be like a multi-programming, right? So similarly, when I'm talking about the multiprocessing, it means morely in spite on programs, we are morely focusing on processing how the hardware is being refers. So we can say multiprocessing refers to execution of multiple processes or the programs at a particular amount of same time. And multiprocessing basically refers to the hardware. If the hardware provides more than one processor, then we can say it is known as a multiprocessing. When I'm talking about a multitasking, multitasking is also somewhere having the same meaning like a multi-programming. But in more general sense, we can say when we are having a multiple programs, process that task, threads running at the same time, then in the modern operating system, we can say we are talking about the multitasking. Basically, multitasking means like commonly sharing a processing of resources. Then after that, we are having a multi-threading. When I'm talking about a multi-threading, basically it is an execution model that allows the single process to have a multiple code segments, which is known as a threads, and all the threads are running concurrently, parallelly to each other. Or somewhere we think like that particular thread is a child process and sharing the parent process resources, and then it is being executing independently. When we are talking about the multiple threads in a single process, it can share the CPU in a single CPU system, or it will run in the parallel in a multiple processing system. So this is all about the operating system. In this lecture, we have discussed about what do you mean by the term operating system, what are the usage, why we are using an operating system, what are the goals of using an operating system, what are the functions of operating system, and types of operating system. When we talk about these terms, these are very basic terms which is being very relevant for the first year students. Then after that, we are moving towards more that is known as a typecasting, or you can say type conversion. As we know that in the previous lectures, we have already discussed about the data types. Like we are having a 3 categories of a data type, like primitive data type, user defined, and derived data types, right? So here, when we are converting one variable from one data type into another data type, then we can say it is known as a typecasting. Clear? Suppose presently my data is in integer and we wants to convert into float or vice versa, then we can say we are talking about the conversion of a one variable from one data type to another, from integer to float or vice versa or other data type. Then we can say this process is known as a typecasting. For example, if you want to store a long value into a simple integer, then we can typecast long to int and so on. So there are the various ways how we can talk about the typecasting. When I talk about the typecasting, there are the 2 types of typecasting. The first is implicit type conversion and the second is explicit type conversion. Fine. So suppose if I am talking about an implicit type conversion, in the case of implicit type conversion, we can say in this the data type or the variable of a lower type is being converted to an higher type. Fine. Remember one thing, when we are converting, the lower data type is converted to a higher data type, then we can say it is known as a implicit data type. And remember, second difference is that it is being automatically converted. Then if it is being converted automatically, that conversion is being taken automatically, then we can say it is known as an implicit type conversion or promotion. Now you can see the example also. Suppose we are having an integer, right? So that particular integer can be converted into an unsigned integer, right? Then it is being converted into a long integer. Then it is being converted into an unsigned long integer, then float, then double, then long double, and so on. So this is the way how you can convert a one integer, which is a lower data type, to a higher data type, that is a long double. Fine. And this particular conversion is automatically done in this when we are executing the programs. Then next we are having an explicit type conversion. When I am talking about the explicit type conversion, when we want to convert a one data type into another, this is a basic way of doing a typecasting or type conversion. But when we are converting a one type of data forcefully in a way that is different from the automatic type conversion, and we need to go is known as explicit type conversion. Here we are doing the things forcefully. Like in the previous implicit type conversion, we are converting from a lower data type to a higher data type. And this particular conversion is being done automatically. But when I'm talking about explicit type conversion, into this case, we are forcing to convert a one data type into another, from lower to higher or higher to lower. In this explicit type conversion, both the type of conversions can be done when I'm talking about typecasting. So suppose the example is, you can see the syntax, like we have to write the type name and then we have to write an expression. For example, this is a letter Y. Here Y is in a type of integer, and here if I want to convert into a float, so I am forcefully writing a keyword that is float of, then we are writing the value of Y, and then whatever the value of X we are getting it, or whatever the type of X we are getting is as float. So this is known as a forcefully being done to conversion. When I am talking about an explicit type conversion, then you can see that is X is equals to integer 8.5, right? And we want to convert it to integer. As I have mentioned that I have to convert it into integer. This is a float value. So when I am forcefully converting it, it will be converted to integer 8 by truncating the value of 0.5. Fine. The next, if I am talking about the A is equals to integer 23.6 slash integer 7.2. So when we are talking about this conversion, so what happens here, because we have mentioned that this is integer. So here the integer of 23 is being converted to the divisible with the integer 7, right? So this would truncate 0.6 or 0.2 from this, and then we will get the desired result, that will be 3, whatever the division is to be coming. After that, when I am talking about sum of these values divided by n, and we are writing it into a double. So into that case, division is being done in a floating point mode. Fine. Then after that, if I am writing integer a plus b, the result, whatever the result of a plus b is, we are getting it, right? So into the C, we always get the result is in integer form. Then after that, if I am writing p is equals to integer a plus b, then a is being converted to integer, and then it is being added to b. Now see, this is the difference of brackets. Here we have do the addition of first, and then whatever the value will come, it will convert it into the integer, and then it will store into C. But here there is a difference. First we have to convert the value of a into integer, then we will edit the desired result with the b, and then we will get the desired output as p. This is the way how we are talking about the type conversion. So when we talk about the type conversion, remember one thing, that there are the two types of conversion: implicit type conversion, which is being converted from lower data type to higher data type automatically, and explicit type conversion, which is being done forcefully, in which we can do the conversion from lower to higher and vice versa. Next, we are going to talk about standard input output. As we all know, whenever I am talking about the programming in computers systems, so we need to use a certain standards input output. Like we need a keyboard, we need a mouse, we need a monitor, and so on. So there are the certain standards input and output. So first of all, if I am talking about standard input, which is also known as an STDIN, standard input, which is used for taking the input from the particular devices like your keyboard, or in which they are considering the data as a data stream. The second, we are having a standard output. When I am using the word standard output, it is also known as STDOUT out, which is being used for giving an output on a particular device. Just say, for example, I am talking about display or a monitor. So when I am talking about the combinations of a particular standard input and output, so for using the functionality of input and output, the programmers, whenever they are doing the programming, they always require to include one header file, which is known as an STDIO. So So generally we need to include the header file stdio.h. This is the header file which gives you the combination of standard inputs and standard outputs. So when I'm talking about reading the characters from the keyboard, right? So generally we are using, as we know that we can use the scanf function whenever we want. But here there is one more function which is being used to read a single character, because here we are talking about reading a characters which is being given by the keyboards, right? So here we can use the syntax variable function that is known as a getChar. When I'm talking about its syntax, you can write where variable name is equals to getChar. Now you can see the example. Suppose if I'm writing about the standard input output header file, as we all know that the main function will call all the functions. So in the C programming, all the functions will get started with the word main. So first of all, if I'm giving the character as title, right? So we need to check the title getChar. So this is the way how you can write the getChar. Now similarly, this is the way how we are inputting the characters with the help of the keyboards. Now what happens? We want to write a characters onto the display screen, right? So we have to talk about the function that is being used to display a single character on a screen. So into that case, we are using one function which is known as a putChar. So putChar is a function which is being used to display a single characters on the screen. Its syntax is you have to write the keyword putChar, and then after that you have to write the variable name. So this is the example. If I'm writing a char title T and then we are calling a putChar and title, then you will get the desired output which is being displayed on a particular screen. This is the way how we are talking about the input and output functions. When we are talking about the characters, for reading a character or for writing a characters, there are the certain formatted input functions that is being taking an input data in a specific formats. Like as I've already told you, we can also use to allow by using the function which is known as a scanf function. Scanf function is that function in which we can use for not only the strings but also for the integer, float and other types of data types also. But it requires a one specific format. Just for example, we can write integer variable name. Now this is the specific format for the integer, that is %d. Whenever we write %d, it means whatever the value you will get for the in variable 1, what variable we have declared here. So it always takes the value in the form of integer. So this is the way how we are talking about this. Now similarly, when we are taking an input, we also require to display the output. So for displaying our output in a specific format, so we are having a one function which is known as a printf function. So printf function is similarly printf. So you can see the example when I'm talking about using the printf function. Suppose if I give the variable value as 60. So again, for printing that particular value, we have used the function printf. We have used the specific format for integer, as I have already told you that it is %d. So into that case, if you print the variable var1, so into that you will get the desired output as 60. These all are the certain parameters. Now let's talk about the certain errors also. Fine. When I'm talking about its errors, there are the commonly generally we are having a 3 types of errors that generally use being coming in C programming. The first is syntax error, logical error and sometimes runtime error. When I'm talking about the syntax error are those errors in which we are writing the incorrect syntaxes. There are certain syntax, just for example, I have told you while using or while displaying the output, we have to use the word printf. So in spite of writing a printf, if the user is writing print, so there is a syntax error. So that particular error is being found at the compile time. As we all know that C is a compiled based language, so it is being found at the compile time. There is a logical error. When I'm talking about the logical error, there is certain incorrect into the logic. Now, this particular problem or error is not found at the compile time error, but this particular error is being found for giving the incorrect output. When you execute your program and you will find your output as an incorrect, then you can say it is a logical error. Lastly, we are having a runtime error. Code links and compiles are just fine. You are doing everything in a very well mannered, but there is something illegal happens. Then we can say it is known as a runtime error. So these are the certain errors when I am talking about. Now you can see the examples. For example, if I am talking about the syntax, you can see here I am writing printf the value of x, but now you can see I am not using the semicolon. I have used the colons. So this is the one error. Similarly, x is not declared. Which type of a x variable is integer, float or whatever it is. This is a syntax error. Now when I am talking about the logical error, here I have mentioned float average a and b, right? So but here we should return a plus b divided by 2 if I am writing it. So what you will get the logic? B is being divided by 2, then the whatever the value you will get, it will be added to a, right? But the logic should be a plus b divided by 2. Whatever the summation of a and b you will get it, you will be divided by 2. When I am talking about the runtime error, you have to write the type integer and here you are executing the a. So this is the way how you are talking about the errors. Now let's talk about the last thing, that I am talking about the executable object code and executable codes. Whatever the human is writing writing the program or the source code into a human readable language or high level languages. Whatever the source code is being converted with the help of the compiler is known as an object code, and these codes are known as a machine language codes, which is being easily readable by the machines only. And finally, when we are providing this object codes to the system, then it will convert it into the executable codes, and executable codes are those codes which is being generated after linking all the object modules and after compilation. So this is the way how we are converting the complete program with the help of the linker and compiler, which we have discussed into our previous lectures. Now last, we are talking about the variables and memory allocation. Variable is particularly a name which is being assigned to a data value to store a particular location into the memory, and variables are used to store the various kinds of data during the program executions. Fine. So this is the way how you can create the examples. Now you can see the declaration for initialization is data type, and then you have to write the variable name. Suppose if I am giving a data type as integer, variable name is num. And the second way is integer num is equals to 10. It means initialization and declaration both will be done at the same time. So these are the ways how you can declare the different variables. So these all are the references from where you can refer your notes. Thank you.